Welcome back to The Outright Effect, a podcast in which unique perspectives challenge us to be better versions of ourselves. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Tempsy.
And today we are recording via Zoom because of the whole social distancing thing. I mean, we're still going through this. It's been about a month so far. I think we're, slowly getting adjusted, and I've been hearing some other podcasts filming this way, but ultimately I think it's the best thing for us to do right now to stay safe and healthy. Today we're actually doing an interview, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring that up. I know we had planned some interviews in the past. This is the first one that we're actually doing, but I think initially we thought this was going to be in person. So just wanted to throw it out there in case anybody is wondering about the sound quality. So we apologize for that. We're doing the best that we can.
Yes, we are so excited for our very first interview. If you've been following along and have been able to listen to all of our episodes, you'll also know that we are quite intrigued by the entrepreneurial mindset and perspective. And so we are very excited for our guest today.
Yes, Camille Heung is the owner of Valia Honolulu, a women's clothing and gift boutique specializing in locally designed and handmade brands. Camille is originally born in Hong Kong and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. She spent almost a decade working in retail, starting as a sales girl at a local mall boutique to working as an assistant manager for Gucci in Waikiki. In 2016, she opened Valia Honolulu and has been dedicating her time to starting and running a business from the ground up. Hi, Camille. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Shelley. Hi,
Hi.
Tempsy.
Hi.
So tell us a little bit about your business. How did you come up with the name and what is your brand all about?
So, Valia Honolulu, like you mentioned, is a women's clothing and gift boutique. The name is actually my feminine form of the word valiant. So, it has all that meaning of the word valiant, strong, confident, brave, but in a feminine way. And that's kind of the way I want people to feel about the clothing when they try it on, when they leave, when they're wearing it out. Later on. And we carry a lot of women's clothing, but also accessories and gifts. We buy specifically local designers, things that are made in Hawaii or handmade brands. So we do have some things that aren't made here, but we have a really close relationship with all of the brands that we do carry. So we have about like over 20 plus brands now that are that do fit into those categories. And they're mainly female owned businesses or like husband and wife duos. So we really like to support the female small businesses. And I think that it's important that we have that relationship with the business owners because we like to share their stories. And being able to share their stories is a lot easier when you know the people behind the brands and how they're making it, what they're about, and just their family and their lifestyle.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for supporting female small businesses. I think that's super awesome.
Thank
And
you.
female podcasts. Not just kidding.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. What inspired you to start a business?
I really always wanted to start a business. So when I was in middle school, well, prior to wanting to start a business, I wanted to be like a kindergarten teacher. And then I tried doing like that whole summer fun thing where you watch the kids for a couple hours and decided this is not what I wanted to do. And and I was like, I was really into looking at through a lot of magazines. I was actually really into the designer brands, even though I didn't own anything from designer brands. But it was like the history and the craftsmanship of it that really got me. And so from when I was in middle school, I was already like trying to drop my logo and like come up with a name for my future boutique. And I thought that if I saved $1 a day from that point until I graduated college, I would have enough to open a boutique when I finished college. But who really saves $1 a day when you're in middle school and you have no money? So I ended up doing it after I had gone to school at UW, University of Washington, for retail management, and then worked in various jobs in retail management in different levels, and then finally opened up And like I had a lot of really great mentors, and my dad was also an entrepreneur. He was an attorney, so he had his own law firm, and I think that really gave me like a really strong foundation, and also really good like advice and mentorships at a younger age. But I've always been like that person that this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm gonna do, and it lucky for me it happened that way.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's so funny. You know what? I also watched kids for summer fun. And that was like, that's when I knew I could not be a teacher because enrollment would drop, not because of, school is expenses. It would be because of the teacher, if that were me. But
I
so
watched a
yeah,
kid for one. I watched a kid for one summer and never did it again. Same thing.
I
I
was
was.
watching like 20 kids at a time. It was ridiculous.
I don't even have the
Anyways.
one. I don't know what I thought of having my own kid.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a deterrent, right? Just spending spending time like you really know you want to do it or you don't. And I was like, and it was the exact age I wanted to teach. I wanted to be a preschool teacher. And so I was watching the preschool kids and I was like, they push each other, they're swearing at each other, they're so mean to each other. I have to hold their hands and go to the bathroom 5 times in 1 hour. I was like, I don't want to do this.
But thank goodness for the people who do, for real.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think, it also helps lead you into a direction that you're passionate about as well. And I think we do have to go through that self-discovery a little bit with trying a bunch of different things to figure out what works best for us. So I would say that I'm happy that you ended up where you are
Yeah.
instead of watching preschoolers. So how did you get started? What was the first steps that you took?
So before I actually opened Valia Honolulu, I was still working and I wanted to try like the online boutique thing with my sister. We thought we would make a really good duo because she had certain experience that I didn't as far as like marketing and graphics, copy, writing copy, and things like that. Um, but we quickly learned that we were not compatible work wise. And that was also really hard to do with my full-time job, and that was a really big learning experience, but it was good because I think I got to be familiar with a lot of the software that I use now, and like kind of dip my feet into it and get comfortable. And like online is a totally different thing from regular retail, which is what I'm used to, which is, all my experience is just that customer interaction face to face. So I think that in that aspect, it helped. Um, and once I decided, let's just not do that anymore, and I wanted to make a full on jump into an actual boutique. I was turning 30 and I was like thinking to myself, because I don't have kids and I'm not married at the moment, I thought, if I do want any of those things in the near future, it's going to be really, really hard for me to start a business while I'm trying to raise a family or be pregnant or any of that. And going through major life shifts like that. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it now. So when I turned 30, basically a few weeks after I turned 30, I quit my job and went full on, like finished one thing and opened the business in a couple months. And then also at that point, I had the financial means to do it. So, you can't start with nothing, right? I mean, I've heard of people who have, but very slowly. You really have to have something to start, especially in boutique, because you have to buy all your inventory.
That's some great introspection at that, time of your life to really think, ahead about what your future might look like and say, you know what, there's no better time than the present to just get started. That's amazing. So what internal and external barriers may have held you back in the beginning?
I think the biggest challenge is just having the confidence as a business owner. Um, when you start out, there's so many things you don't know. There's so many like ups and downs and like trial and error, that it gets really difficult to handle, especially if you don't have a really good support system. So I think like just building that confidence in the beginning, it took about a year, year and a half. Also, because when you are a business owner, a lot of people have advice for you and don't necessarily have the entrepreneurial mindset or the background to back it up. They just have an idea of what they think should happen, and you get a lot of advice from a lot of different people, and it pulls you in so many different directions. But just like really learning how to stand my ground and know what I want in my business and sticking to it was tough in the beginning. Um, as far as other barriers, like the budget, I feel like that's a big barrier for a lot of people. Budget, and sometimes you don't know where to start, right? So finding the first location was challenging, building it out, trying to make it work because it wasn't an ideal location. Um, I would say all of those things were really big challenges, but things that in the last 3 years we've been able to overcome really well. Although budget, I think, is always going to be a challenge for anybody. So you just have to learn to work with what you have.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, what was your process like, going through thinking of some of these barriers that maybe you thought you might have had in opening a business? For example, like, did you take some time and like whip out a notebook and start brainstorming stuff? Like, what kind of, if you want to share a little bit of what that process looked like for you?
Yeah, I took some online classes to kind of help. Um, there are some resources online, but I feel like it's different for everyone as far as like building a business. When it came to the vision for like the layout of the shop or the build out, I was like super old school and I did PowerPoints. So I had like whole lists of like, hey, these are what I want the colors of the walls to be like. I do a lot of research. These are like inspo pics, and kind of get everything in that way. But I think you just like ultimately have to trust your own gut and your feeling about what you have to live with it. So you have to be comfortable with everything you put out and just make sure you're doing it like at 100% basically, because if you don't like one little thing and you keep walking past it every day, it's going to bother you until you fix it. um, but yeah, I think definitely a lot of like mood board kind of things, as far as coming up with stuff. And I also think what helped a lot was as I started to grow as a business, I spent more time with other business owners. And that's super helpful because that's kind of leading into developing your support system. You have a lot of people that you can like call on and trust and talk. And when you realize that everyone goes through the same challenges, it's so much more of a relief. And you feel like you're in the same boat as someone, because a lot of times being a business owner is kind of a lonely journey. So I truly believe in like having that network of support and networking with other business owners so that you can share experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something interesting that you mentioned that, I was just thinking of too, as you're saying it, is that Dempsey and I were actually just talking the other day about how sort of like networking or talking with people that whether they be business owners or not, and just kind of like basically what I'm saying is like, don't be shy to ask for help. Like really all someone can say is no, and no shouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I mean, they could just be too busy or have too much stuff on their plate or whatever. Maybe they don't just have anything off the top of their heads that they can share with you. But in the event you do get that yes, and you do get that person who's like, oh yeah, like I want to help you, I love talking about this stuff or whatever, I think that's just one more thing that'll help you and possibly them too. So it's kind of like no harm in just asking. But something that I think that I'm working on as well, kind of resonating with what you're talking about right now, is I'm trying to find those people in the business arena to chat with and kind of like figure out like what I'm doing, what Tempsy and I are doing with this podcast, because I think, just like what you're saying, having that, community of people that you can talk to, who you can trust, bounce ideas off of, and stuff like that. I think that's really important for anyone who's starting a business and continuing it, help like in the growth process of a business. Camille, can you tell us a little bit about moving to your new location? Because I know you were just mentioning how it was starting your first location, but what was it like during your move? Like, did you feel like it was your chance to sort of like recreate yourself, or now, hey, this is my second opportunity to design a space that I like, or what was going through your mind?
Oh yeah, that totally. It was almost like the first location I had this attachment because I felt like, oh, I want to kind of stay here forever. But it's good that when you're forced to make a change, because the reason why I moved was because the building that I was in was getting sold, so it was kind of like a forced thing. But at the same time, like changes to me, change is always good. I don't ever think change is bad. You always learn something from it, or you get an opportunity to do something differently. And I feel like the second location is so much more what I had envisioned. Like the walls, the ceiling, the floors, like everything that I had envisioned originally. And because I had more confidence in what I was doing, I wasn't taking advice from other people who were like, I don't quite understand what your vision is when you're explaining it to me. I didn't feel like I had to validate anything. It was just like, you know what, if you're helping, just I'll tell you what to do. When you see it after, you'll get it. Like, I wasn't as, concerned with pleasing other people. It was just, I know what I want. This is how it's going to look. It's going to look beautiful. Like, you'll see it when it's finished. You don't have to understand what I'm doing right now, but you'll see it when it's done. And I think that it all came together really well. And then I had more experience with DIY because of what I did in the first location. I just had that confidence to take on different projects because both locations were DIY. I didn't hire a contractor because of the budget. So, and with the second location, I was able to pull in a lot of vintage elements or reuse elements. So, like a lot of the displays are like reused wood or items that were purchased at Goodwill and repurposed or like refurbished. So they had my spin on everything, which really felt more in line with the brand.
I do really like the look of your store. I think it looks really great. I love how you have like a whole bunch of windows around on the outside too, but I don't think we told people where you're located.
Oh, yeah. um, we're located at the corner of Pauahi and Bethel Street. So it's actually right across or next to the Hawaii Theater in downtown Honolulu. It's a really cool area because Chinatown is sort of this mix of eclectic businesses, and one of those sectors of business is small boutiques that are basically independently owned and operated, and you'll often find the owner in there working, which I think is the coolest. And then a bunch of like really cool restaurants, same thing, independently owned and operated. And then you have like random Chinese stores and like historic Hawaii theater and historic buildings that have like all this character and architecture. So I love the area.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic of your store as well. And I really like what you said earlier about having the confidence to know, even if you can't really articulate a vision to other people to help them understand what it is, like having that confidence to just say, hey, I get what I need, follow along and help support or get out of my way. And I think that's hard for a lot of people, to have that confidence and to really like move forward with what their vision is, even if people around them really don't understand it, because it can be discouraging, right? Like having a support people and people around you to kind of understand that, or just at least go along with it is got to be important, because it could impact your mindset if you have a bunch of people around you who are negative and just don't get it.
I think that's really what happened the first time around. And this is why I talk about support system a lot, because on a more personal note, when I first opened the first location in the very beginning, I was actually dating somebody who's super opinionated and just wasn't 100% supportive of what I was doing or understanding. Versus the second time around, I was dating someone different, someone I'm still dating, but just so much more supportive. And, you know, if you don't have that support system, it's really tough to build your confidence in what you're doing with your business or any other aspect. So the first time when I built out the first location, my ex would be like, no, I think it should look like this, or no, I don't think this finishes that nice. And it's from a male's perspective, and I'm creating a women's boutique. So at some point I just had to, you know, the second time around, it was like, I appreciate you helping. You might not get how it's going to look at the end, but you're helping me out, and you'll get it after. Like, you'll see it after. It's fine. Like, I don't really need to take in all your input.
That's important. I like that. So, how do you keep up with business trends or ever-changing business, the ever-changing business environment?
I think that, you know, more than ever, that is something we think about because of the business environment currently. But you know, I think it's really about like listening to the customer. I talk to a lot of people and they say they're going to completely pivot their business and they want to go after a new customer. And I'm like asking them, is this something your customer wants, or is this something you want? Like, is your customer going to be able to follow along with your changes? So I think listening to the customer is super important. Looking at best practices, which is helpful when you have a network of other like-minded business individuals who can share their best practices. I think it's always good to research in that way because especially in Hawaii, our market's kind of specific. And I'm sure it is in a lot of places where your demographic or your market is very specific to your location. Keeping an open mind, I think that goes for so many different things because if you are set on a specific strategy and you think that your formula will work for you forever, it will not. Like, because business changes so much over time, and like you said, it's ever changing. It's a constant thing. Like, even when it comes to marketing, like social media is something that a lot of older businesses aren't comfortable with, but they just kind of have to adapt to and kind of learn how to do, or hire someone to help with. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, just kind of making sure that it caters to the customer and not you. Like, you're asking for feedback from the customer, you're listening to the feedback, and then you're making those changes. Of course, it's your business. You want to do some things that make you happy, and you should, but you should do it within the I guess, realm of your customers' expectations and wants and needs. Because I guess for any business, you are not your target audience, right? You have a target audience and you have to cater to that.
Right. Yeah, I think those are some really great points. So something that we did want to ask is about, you know, what's going really well in your business right now. And I know, okay, so for the listeners, right, today is April 18th, and we have a new, I don't know, way of living. I don't like to say it that way because it's not really like a new way of living completely. I mean, we're just home more. That could be new for some people, I guess. But you know, there's a lot of drastic changes happening out in the market right now. So while you know, I know we're all hopeful that this will go back to as normal as possible later. You know, I wanted to ask, what was it like? What was going really well prior to all this going on, and what's going really well right now for you?
I think what was going on really well was we had kind of got into this groove after 3 years of business. And I started trying to have a strategy where we were developing more consistency. So, like, really systemizing things, templates for things, just being more consistent in the way we ordered for customers as well. So that was going really well. I think it took me a while to realize that I didn't have to do something different every time. Like, it's better for branding and for my customer to just understand the expectation and meet the expectation. It doesn't have to be so hard. And then when everything happened in mid-March and we were given that like stay-at-home order, we totally had to pivot because we were a relationship-based, in-person kind of business. And I mean, to be fair, it wasn't as big of a pivot as maybe some other brands because I had already been working really hard on our online business and trying to build that up since the beginning of, I mean, for a while, but especially since the beginning of this year. Um, so a lot of things were already set, but uh, we did have to kind of change a little bit, and we started selling face masks. So we did it very true to our brand because we like to partner with a lot of small female business owners, and the business we decided to partner with for our face masks is Miyuki Lean Bridal, and she is a wedding dress designer and maker. She does both. She designs, makes everything. Um, Super talented and someone we were like really comfortable, we're friends with, we have that relationship with. And so we partnered with her to launch face masks for the store. And that's another, industry that was hit really hard is the wedding industry, right? Nobody's ordering wedding dresses right now. So it was a big pivot for both of us. But I think I learned so much in that pivot about being able to change to the environment and just be flexible and but still do things in the way that's true to you.
So I think it's really great and really important for businesses to realize, bouncing back is super important. All kinds of things are going to come your way or, anyone's way at any given time. And we can't always expect what's going to be happening, right? Like life is just generally unpredictable, but I think it's really important, and it speaks, like it says a lot for businesses who can make that shift and that change just depending on what's going on in the world. So props to you guys to making something new and also keeping it your own and staying within your brand, because I think that's really important too. So are there any challenges that you're currently facing? I think we, generally understand what's going on in the world right now, and a lot of us maybe not have the same challenges, but quite similar. What are some challenges that you're facing currently?
I think, right now it is, we are going through a lot of the similar challenges as far as like, again, budget, managing stock levels because I'm not certain what's going to happen. So I'm just kind of like holding off on what I should be ordering or bringing in, and just really scrutinizing every purchase. Um, and then adjusting in general to work from home because I moved my boutique into the spare bedroom in the house, and I did not have any structure for what my day was going to look like in this space. And I've been working 7 days a week, full days, and I don't know how to not do that when my office is in my house because it's so much easier to just be on all the time. Um, and then another thing is just like, how do you grow? How do you market to new customers now? It's marketing with, but also being sensitive, but also remembering people are out there that want to support you. So it's like this very delicate balance of being sensitive, but also still making sure you're building your business, that you're growing, and deciding where your money's going to go. But I think the nice thing is that I do have time now to sit down and evaluate things. If I just make the time out of, between sewing masks, packing orders, all kinds of other stuff. So, I'm trying to take this time to also work on like branding for the business so that it's a lot stronger and improve certain areas of our business's foundation so that when we do get to reopen, it'll be even better than it was.
So I think it's really great that you're taking the time now to work on your business, while you can't physically be within the store and working on your brand. I think that'll do so much more for you once you're back, and ready to run and see all your customers again. What are some things that helps to keep you motivated? Because it sounds like you're really motivated right now, but maybe if you can share some tips with us so we can all stay motivated as well.
I think what keeps me motivated is that I still get to like keep some kind of contact with my customers, like either through email or social media, through our email blast, whatever it is. But customers will message and say, oh, I just got that face mask that you sent. I love it. Or, I never realized your packaging for online orders, like so much, you put so much time into it and effort into it. Because we actually send a handwritten note with every online order, which does add to the amount of time it takes. But this is our way of connecting and sending something more personal. And this is what we were doing before, and we don't want to sacrifice any of that customer experience just because our volume has gotten busier online. And even, or what else, another thing that keeps me motivated is like when you do something and it works, so like you can see the fruits of your labor. I mean, that's just in general with business. And then jokingly, I always say like what keeps me motivated is like the idea of going back to my old job, like makes me motivated to keep doing what I'm doing. It sounds really silly, but a lot of people have like little reminders. I have like a stack of parking permits, like, those little things you hang on your mirror, your rear view mirror. I have like a stack of parking permits that's about 2 inches high, and it's in the glove compartment of my car, and I haven't taken it out from when I used to work because I want it to remind me of every month that I had to hang that thing on my rearview mirror to go to work, and I was dying. So everyone has little reminders of like, be grateful for what you have, be grateful for what you're going through, and just stay motivated instead of, always thinking the grass is greener. Like, it's good to have a reminder that the grass is not greener sometimes.
That's so funny. I always throw those things away, so I'm pretty amazed that you kept so many of them. I have none, and I've parked in places for a long time. But what I think you mentioned that I think is really important, and something you're not willing to give up right now, even though your online orders have gone up, because right now, most of us who are shopping online, is writing those notes to customers, because I think, right now when business is tough, that customer service aspect is what stays in someone's mind and has them continue to shop with you, versus another business that may be less personal, right? Like you have less of that interaction. So I think that's really cool that you're doing that, and I think you should continue as well. I like getting little notes when I buy stuff online from small businesses. Yeah, from like a customer feedback, I think that's a good thing to do. So are there any business metrics that you track, and how do you look at those things, and how does it impact your operations and, your strategy and stuff like that? I think that's something that I'm trying to learn more about. So if you can share some of your experience, that would definitely help me a lot. And I'm sure a lot of other people out there who are listening too.
So this, these are always the fun things, right? Because you get to stare at numbers and then make decisions. And I say fun jokingly. I don't mean it's fun, but I used to work in retail management, so a lot of reports I used to look at, and then you have to look at the reports, grab the numbers, and then analyze them basically, or recap why they were a certain way. So it's sort of like ingrained in me to do this. Um, but I look at P&L reports, which is the profit and loss, and also cash flow reports. So those I think are really two important areas, because it shows you what you're spending money on, where your money is going, because there's a difference between a profitable business and not. And you want to be a profitable business, of course. And I know in the beginning it's hard to see that profit, because you spent so much or invested so much and you're still growing, which is understandable. But these are good ways to measure your growth. And also see what you can spend more on or cut back on. And then like customer retention, that's more like how many times your customer comes back to you. And I think that number is really important because, well, for me, I don't believe in building a business that's purely transactional and you're just going to see that customer once and then leave. And I know a lot of other businesses feel that way, because when you look at the metrics for how much it costs to acquire a new customer versus retain a customer, the cost to acquire is always going to be higher than retention. And that's why a lot of those small personal touches come into play, because you want your customer to have that experience where they feel like they want to come back and shop with you. And that helps you make decisions in a lot of things. It's your the way you decide to communicate to your customer, your clienteling, if you are a brand that does clienteling, which means that you're consistently communicating with your customer and keeping them in touch and building that relationship. And over time, essentially, if your customer retention gets higher, your sales grow as well. And then website traffic, I look at a lot. It's really deceiving right now because so many people are online because they have the time and that's all they can do, right? And then conversion. So basically, out of how many people come into your door or come into your website, how many are leaving with a purchase. So those really help drive, like, those are good indicators of the customer experience, or maybe if you have the right product or not, sizing. To me, a lot of those I relate to customer experience. And there's people, we're a business that we develop the relationship and hopefully it leads into a sale. But the relationship comes first. So we're not like this kind of store where you walk in, it's like, hey, just tell me if you need something. Like, we want to help you find something. We want to help you find the right thing, something that makes you happy, so that when you leave, you are satisfied with your purchase. So I don't know, that those numbers kind of like go into all kinds of tangents, but those are just a few things that I look at kind of frequently.
And I can attest to that. I mean, when I've gone into your store, you've been so welcoming. You always like come and talk to me, or I come and talk to you, and we have great conversations. Even when I first met you, you were so welcoming, and so approachable. And there are stores, even, some of the local stores that, I go in and I nobody even talks to me, and that's okay. I get it. But at the same time, my experience and me feeling comfortable in that store and spending my hard-earned money, really like increases when it's somebody who is approachable and really makes me feel welcome. So I think you guys do a great job of that.
So, in talking about some of these metrics, like where do you look for them? So, like, let's say, for example, I would think like profit and loss, for example, maybe you're looking at like your books, like some kind of like accounting related stuff. Some of these other things I think maybe come out of your register system sort of thing, like repeat customers, that kind of thing, if you're tracking what customers are buying. And maybe like web traffic, I would assume there's some kind of tool or something online, but conversion where you're seeing a customer come into your store, but like actually noting or remembering, like, are you remembering if they're, like just a mental gauge, like a visual mental gauge, like, oh, like I saw approximately 20 people come in here today, but only 5 people bought something. Is that like something you're just keeping mental note of?
Yeah, actually, because I know it sounds really weird, but uh it's one of those things when you work in retail a long time, right? So what you might not know is a lot of retail stores have foot traffic counters above the doors. And so they've installed software that count how many people go into the store. And then it compares with the amount of purchases that were made that day, and that determines your conversion. And like there's all kinds of funny stuff. Like people, like I remember one time we were like, our conversion's so wrong. It's because it's counting the shadows, from the sunlight in the afternoon, whatever. Like people will say all kinds of things. And if you hear, we do have friends who work in retail, and they're like, don't come in, you're gonna mess up my conversion. Like, that's what they're referring to, is that their counter on the door is counting you and you're not buying anything. So but I think that I use it personally as a measurement because we don't have that crazy foot traffic where I need a door counter. I can mentally kind of count, and sometimes I do manually like tally it up when I really want to know a precise number. But two numbers that a lot of people or retail do look at is the conversion and then the average spend. And so sometimes you could have, a ton of people come in and then nobody buys anything, but maybe you just have a handful of people come in, but they all bought something. it's different metrics that you look at, and then different ways you kind of judge, I guess, how your day went. And it's one of those things that, like I said, it's like ingrained in my head. Um, so I kind of just do it automatically without thinking that I'm doing it. But I think that it's important to have metrics when you're running your business, because you don't want to just do things and not know where you're going. You could be so much more effective when you have the metrics to back up your actions.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, that was just a curious question of mine because I worked in retail, but like less seriously, like as a part-time job. And I was like, how do you know this? Anyways, so that never came up with whoever was my manager at the time. And back then it was in college. So I was kind of not paying attention anyway. I mean, I definitely know we tried to do the thing where it's like you try to add on to the sale, that kind of thing, where you're just not selling one thing, but they're hoping for like at least two item kind of thing. So anyways, just wanted to ask that question in case anyone else listening was wondering about that too. So thanks for answering. So is there anything exciting coming up for you? I know right now, maybe not so much, but what are your plans? It could be something, far out, in the future that you're envisioning. If there's anything that you can share with us, what might those things be?
So, in the past, we've done a lot of events in the store, like in-store events or collaborations or even networking events for small business owners. But we have a couple things that were in the works that we're hoping will still come into reality. But we had a collaboration we were working on with a handbag brand as well as a graphic design company to launch. We were trying to launch for Mother's Day, but that is not going to happen. But it will launch hopefully sometime this year. And then for our anniversary last year, we partnered with YWCA. So we plan to partner again with YWCA this year. But we also launched these T-shirts, and a portion of the proceeds had been going to YWCA, and we wanted to bring that back again because it was really so successful. And I think that the shirts, the message was basically about strong women and female empowerment, and I think that that message still resonates, especially in a time like now. But we've encountered challenges because we don't have a regular printer. And we were also working with Aloha United Way on an event as well. So hopefully those events do happen in the later half of the year once it's safe, and that we can still take on those collaborations. But I know a lot of us are very focused on meeting the need for face masks right now. Even the handbag brand we were going to collaborate with. So we've all got our hands full.
That's great that you're supporting the community that you are, you have a thriving business in. Giving back to the community is huge, and I think that sometimes can get lost when you're running a business. And so really commend you for giving back to the community around you. That's amazing. What are your overall goals for the business?
Eventually hoping to have like one or two really successful locations and just still be working in the shop every day. I want to be there. I'm not a person who wants to like hand it off or sell the business or have someone manage it and go to the beach all day. And then really far down the road, I would love to have an incubator space to work with new small businesses and help coach them in the beginning processes. I think that small business should continue to thrive and grow and get the resources and help that they need. And I think it's good to have someone, like I said, again, that support system. So that would be a really far down the road eventual goal, but hopefully one that does happen.
I mean, that's really important because hospitality and small businesses are what runs this state. And so that's really amazing, giving back even more to the community. So that's some great news. I love that.
So is there anything else that you'd like to add? I know that you have spent a lot of time sharing all of your expertise with us today, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, we just kind of wanted to open that up to you now.
Yeah, I think speaking a little bit about that future goal of like having incubator space, I've just kind of started working with a couple brands, doing some one-on-one consulting It's very tailored, so I spend time with each brand trying to understand them. It's not cookie cutter. It's not like an online program where you buy it and fill out some pages and DIY. It's like sitting down, working together, figuring out how to develop their branding, their marketing, and really give them a strong foundation. And it's also for businesses that are already established, but maybe have not put in the time to spend on this foundation. Like they started as a hobby and they have no business plan. So started working with a couple local brands on that in the beginning. And I'm actually still looking for more brands to work with, just to kind of test it out and get my feet wet in this area and get feedback before I really be more vocal about it.
Sure, yeah, that's understandable, but I'm sure that, you'll find a lot of other people who would love to take you up on that, like maybe us. I don't know. Up to you. All right. So now that we've, kind of gone through a whole lot of different topics with Camille today, we have some, we call them like rapid fire questions. So it just are kind of like basic questions, as we kind of go through the interview process. Camille, we're so thankful that you're our first one on here. We're, thinking about who else we can include on this whole interview experience. But we thought it might be a good idea to ask a few similar questions to all of our interviewees, just so, people out there can get different perspectives, but kind of on the same topics. So first question is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone who wants to start a business?
Have a really good support system.
That's a good one. I think that's a really good one.
You've mentioned that a lot, and I've heard that from a lot of other business owners. So I'm guessing
it's true. It's a fact, guys. Get a good support system.
It's so important.
Do you have any creative outlets, or do you feel like that's your business? If you do have a creative outlet, what is something that you do?
Photography, and I hate saying the word photography because I'm not a photographer. Taking pictures is my creative outlet.
I mean, I think that's a good one. I'm not a photographer either, but I do like to take pictures of stuff, nature, food, my dog, I think those are all fine. We don't have to call it photography. It's casual,
Yeah, my dog would say that, it's one of those things where you joke, like if your dog sees how many pictures you have on your phone of them, they would think you were extremely creepy. Yep, how many pictures I have of my dog sleeping? Yeah.
That's true. Yes, I have a lot of pictures of my dog sleeping. He probably would think I'm creepy. You're right.
Does that same rule apply for kids?
I don't know. I have no comment on that. If it maybe, okay, so in that case, if it's your kid, maybe not so much. If it's someone else's kid, especially if you don't know that person, then yes, it is creepy.
For sure.
All right, our last question is, where is your favorite place to travel, or what does your dream vacation look like?
I like traveling to places that don't have cell service because then you have to really stop working and unplug. But I've been to two places I really, really love, or three-ish. One has cell service though. So when I went to Peru, I went to Machu Picchu. I loved it. That was beautiful. And then I've been to Cambodia. I really love Cambodia. Those are my top two. And then Singapore. Which is much more modern than the other two and does have cell service along with a lot of other technological stuff. But it was like one of the best experiences in one of those more modern Asian countries.
That's super cool. You want to know something really random? At some point of my childhood, I don't remember when, but I wrote a report on Machu Picchu, and I don't even remember what I wrote about, but
you should go. That's one of those places where it might not be around forever because it's starting to fall apart with all the tourism. And it's so cool, like llamas, there's like llamas hanging around Machu Picchu, seriously, like wild llamas. And the only thing is if you get a little sick from like car sick, I don't know if you've ever heard, but that road to get up there is super creepy. Windy.
Is it like windy?
It's windy and it's really made for one bus, but there's two. It's like two lanes, but it looks like one lane and you might fall off.
Yeah. I think I've seen pictures like there's no guardrail situation and it's like a cliff basically, right? Yeah.
Or so like sit on the side away from the cliff so you're not looking out the window. Yeah.
Good travel tip.
Yes, and Cusco, which is where you usually fly into and then kind of make your way to Machu Picchu, is gorgeous. Like old
Cool.
European town gorgeous.
I'll put those on my list.
I've heard a lot about Machu Picchu for the last like 3 to 5 years. Like it seems to be a very popular place to go nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good travel spot for families too.
All right, Camille. Well, we want to sincerely thank you for coming on our podcast today, especially with everything going on in the world. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on to talk about your journey. Did you want to mention where people can find you online and social media?
Yeah, they can find us online at valiahonolulu.com. So it's VALIA Honolulu. And same for our Instagram at Valia Honolulu. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. We appreciate you coming on. All right, everybody. That's all that we have for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to The Outright Effect. You can find us at theoutrighteffect.com. You can also follow us on our social media accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and now YouTube, all at The Outright Effect. You can also reach out to us by emailing us at theoutrighteffect@gmail.com. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.